Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to our Tellers Lake Secondary College VTAC session for students and parents. It's great to see so many of you joining us already. I'll just go through a couple of housekeeping things there. So, if particularly this is the first time for you using the WebEx system. But if I can ask you to just make sure that your microphones are set to mute, and you'll be able to control that just on your screen. There should be it's the the first icon there, and so that's the main thing. As we'll go through the presentation, I will certainly give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions at the end as well. But the other feature I wanted to introduce to you was in relation to the chat. So again, on your screen, if you're just toggling on there, you should be able to find a speech bubble that says closed chat, and there's already a couple of messages in there from some of our teachers joining us tonight, and that's where you should feel free to type in your questions or comments as we're going along with the presentation. We are joined tonight by a number of members of the Year 12 team. So I'd like to say welcome and good evening to Antoinette Mazzarato, our senior school leader. Our two, here she is, our two year level leaders, Joe Laganga and Mel Tarquinio, and our careers leader, Miss Catherine Damon, and our principal, Danny Ditas. So we're the team that, excuse me, are here tonight to deliver a presentation to you, and they'll be helping to answer some of your questions as well. So we'll go through the presentation, and as I said, towards the end, we'll have an opportunity for some Q&A. But if you do want to ask your questions along the way, then that's fine as well. All right. So again, just a reminder there, please, just to mute all your microphones. Thank you. All right. So first, I'm just going to just bring up the first page of the presentation and ask Mr. Dinas to kick us off.
Okay, guys, welcome to our online presentation. Thank you for coming down. There's a bit of feedback, so maybe if we just ask everyone to go back on mute again, that'd be great. Sorry for that. Thank you. So yes, so thank you very much for everyone coming down. It is normally we will do this in person. It is slightly different to what we're doing at the moment. And it is really about setting the stone for VTAC presentation, which is setting the process for our students moving from or transitioning from secondary to tertiary. And I think it's fantastic to see so many people here tonight. But it's a process of what to do now for 2021. So it is slightly different to what we've got at the moment normally, and the whole point tonight is actually go through the process, find out a bit more what needs to happen, and this will be followed up from the home group at the same time the next few weeks, and we're probably also planning to do probably some also interviews coming through over the next few weeks with individual students to make sure things are back on deck. So something that we discussed today with the principals this afternoon, probably looking at a day to connect with every single student and just go through that process and ensure that everyone is on speed in terms of what's going on. So tonight's presentation is really going to be a combination of speakers going through different processes, and like like Rick said before, probably at the end, opportunity for yourself to ask questions. But you can also use the chat line where the coordinators, myself, and all the staff who are on tonight, you can actually answer your questions also at the same time. So thank you guys for for jumping on board. Like I said, it is different. We're doing a lot of these sessions just to support our students, and I do thank everyone who's come down tonight. And a credit to all of our students and parents who are joining us. It's a really good process to understand what your child is going to be going through over the next 5 weeks in terms of picking their courses, and having an open mindset in terms of what's out there. But it's important to make sure that the options are open as much as possible, and making sure that every single door is open for them. And if you can have 8 doors, 10 doors open, instead of being asked to probably just go for the one door, think beyond that. So having a broad mind and as many opportunities as possible. Okay, so I will leave it at that. And like I said, I'll be around tonight. You can ask questions. And again, thank you for joining us. I'll hand it over to Rick.
Okay, thank you, Danny. So just bring out the presentation again. Just one final reminder there, please. Please make sure you've got your microphones switched off so we can hear the presentation clearly. So again, while we're going through the presentation, if I can ask the coordinators and so on to help with any questions and so on that are coming up in the chat. All right, so I'll be taking you through the first part of the presentation. So briefly just trying to outline our goals for tonight. We do want you to get that understanding of the tertiary planning process around VTAC and what that stands for. A knowledge of that, that process, and more specifically around some of the features related to part of the VTAC website called Course Search. And we also want to make sure you've got some understanding there about the knowledge, particularly around the CEAS applications. Just before we get into, VTAC and a bit of that process, just to try to give a snapshot around what's been happening at Taylors Lakes for a number of weeks already. And this is largely through the work of Ms. Damon, our careers leader, and how she's supporting all the Year 12 students and the home group teachers. So thank you to our home group teachers. I noticed there were a couple in the audience already tonight as well. Thank you for jumping in. But there's been a whole lot of information that your children have been exposed to through the home group program, building up towards this process. It's getting sort of to a bit of the pointy end of the process as it relates to VTAC. So there's a whole range of things there that we have been already having some discussions and some planning around. So VTAC is the main institution that we are going to be speaking about tonight. Pardon me. And that stands for the Victorian Tertiary Admissions Centre. And so this is the group who is responsible for essentially acting on behalf of all of the universities and the TAFEs in collecting information and data that comes from all the students linked to all the schools, and then acts as the go-between between the school, the student, and those institutions as well. So they do play a very important role in being able to make sure that information is shared in a timely fashion and also obviously in a confidential fashion as well. And VTAC have published, this is going to be their process for this year. So some of the dates of the process are a bit different this year for obvious reasons. And some of them are sticking to what their normal timelines would be, and that would be from the start. So the application process that we're going to outline tonight So that's been open for about a week or so, and they're going to close at the end of September. So that's pretty usual to what they would be doing in most years. We're going to talk about something called Cs and scholarships. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. So there's a little bit more time for those types of applications to be confirmed. As you may have heard in the media, that the government has announced that a commitment to all Victorian Year 12 students in receiving their study scores and their ATARs by the end of this year, to ensure that there's no delay with them being able to be considered for tertiary placement. And so that's going to happen on 30th of December. So we're going, that's much later than what students would normally be getting with their ATAR, at least a couple of weeks later. And that sort of then effectively pushes the rest of the process back. So then we'll move into January 2021, and that's where students will they start to receive some of their being able to make a change of preference. So we'll go into that. So once they get some feedback of what their ATAR is, they may want to make some changes to that. By mid-January, that's when the first lot of offers come through, and they'll roll through into late February, and we'll go through a little bit of that process as well for you. So tonight we're going to effectively sort of chunk it into these 4 areas. A little bit of information about finding those courses, applying for them, that important section there on Cs and scholarships, and what happens in that late December, early January period. So to start us off with a finding courses section, I'll ask Miss Damon to take the microphone, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for everyone attending tonight, and I hope you can hear me at this point of time. Okay, so this is a really good section here, and I'm talking about the whole 3 slides in front of you. VTAC has actually updated their web browser and all their web online information. But the area that you need to look at is the VTAC Year 12 guide. And when you do a search in VTAC, you go to the home page, but it's on one of the second tabs in the VTAC up the top, and that will take you to the VTAC Year 12 guide. It answers all the questions regarding anything you actually want to know. It has PDFs. It actually has processes. It's a really, really good interface. The other 2 interfaces are for Year 10 guide and Year 11. And for parents there with younger students, we use that in our curriculum for next year as well. So this whole part of VTAC has actually smartened up themselves to provide curriculum material for our students. So go online to VTAC if you have any queries and end up clicking the second tab, which will be the VTAC Year 12 guide area, and it answers all your questions and provides links. The area that I quite like is the course search area, and they've even made this even better in this section, because you can actually do simple searches, and you can say something like accounting, and you can do an accounting search, and it will whip you up so many courses in accounting. But if you want to actually create a smaller search, you can. So this has actually been really good, and it's improved over years. So this is what we use with our Year 12 students. Thank you, Rick. This area here talks about prerequisites and Course Explorer. This is more for Year 10 and 11. I actually won't recommend it for Year 12s because their plans are already set. And for any parents out there, it's probably more suitable for Year 10 and 11 students when they're doing some course searches before applying for courses. So we can move on, Vic. Okay, this is very important because a lot of students actually try to look for a course, but they look for courses that aren't actually on VTAC. And anything below, probably a certificate 4 may not be listed. Not many certificate 4s are listed on the course search. And what's really good with VTAC now, they actually have an interface where if you search a course, it will directly say whether you apply through VTAC or you apply direct. And so it's actually really handy. With other courses, you will see that the universities will offer advanced diplomas, associate degrees and bachelor degrees. Some of our students often apply for double degrees. But if a student doesn't get their required score, we look at things that will pathway them into a course later, and that might be a certificate for a diploma or an advanced diploma course. Thanks, Vic. This is a very good now with a VTAC. Now the numbers there are a bit hard to see, but it's really important that you can actually understand some of the numbers. So some of the codes tell you where that course is going to be held, and it might be, say, like RMIT, it might be in the city, but then another course might be in Bundoora. So it's really important to look at the number 5 where the course is actually being held, and we try to encourage students to look at where they can travel to. There's another number there, number 6, which is really about the payment of courses, and I'll go through that maybe later. It's to do with whether it's a Commonwealth supported fee or whether it's a direct supported fee where TAFEs have that. That's number 2. And number 3 is international, and number 4 is private organisations that you pay up front. So it's very, very important to look at your course code and check the end of the number of that course code. So if it's 1, it's government supported. If it's 2, it's TAFE. If it's 3, we don't actually apply for 3s unless they're actually international students. And if it's 4, we question the students to ask questions about what will it cost me to go to university. Some of the other areas there, it's really, VTAC has really smartened up their game on making it clear. And so that section there, it says, what do I have to do to get into? And it's very, very handy to have a look at that section, and it gives you information about prerequisites. So thank you, Rick. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so we're looking at prerequisites here, and I'd like to just take you to some of these. Prerequisites are getting into a course, whether you've got the right maths, whether you've got the right science, whether you've got the right English score to get in. If the score is under that prerequisite, the institution has no, they don't have to take you at all, and they often don't look at your application. So prerequisites are highly important, and we try to get students at year 10, 11 and 12 to look at that. So at this point in time, we ask students to look at their prerequisites when they're applying for courses, and I actually examine their forms, and when I see that they're not matching the prerequisites, I say to them it's a waste of applying for that course because it's not going to be looked at. So you can click on the next one, Rick, thank you. Okay, personal statement. When you're actually doing applying, some courses ask for a personal statement why you should be included in that course, and so this isn't a part of CEAS. It's just a personal statement of why you should be recognised for that course. You go to the next one, please, Rick. This is very important, and this is what's going to be in our home group program in next week, along with scholarships. Now, the Casper Test is a separate body, And it's a requirement if any student would like to be counted for an educational study or a course. And so the Casper test it actually costs about $80 to $90. I can't remember what the fee was the other day. However, students book in for that test, and a lot of students find that they want to apply after their exams and think, oh, it's okay, miss, I'm applying afterwards. But last year's experience meant that I couldn't see whether they were eligible for a course. And I really would like students to actually book in early for the Casper test if they're doing education. And we're going through that in the home group program the coming week. And because they were caught out last year. And sometimes the results of Casper didn't come out in time, and students got very anxious and they didn't know whether they were going to be eligible. Subject adjustments are very good too, because some students have decided to do a whole humanities course and they might want to be studying law. And so when they do a particular range of subjects, they can click on, they can go into VTAC and check to see if they've got subject adjustments, and they might actually get some extra bonus points. And that is also with sciences as well. It's difficult to explain, but it allows a student to actually see if they can get some bonus points because they've got a package deal in their VCE studies already. The next one, please, Vic. Okay, so this one, I want to talk about folio presentation, interview, and audition. Now, a lot of students apply for a subject and on their courses, and they don't look at the prerequisites, and they might have to do a folio presentation just before September, or they might have to do an audition just before September. And they still leave it on their applications, but they didn't attend or they didn't apply for getting them to look at their folio presentation or their audition, and they miss those interviews. And so that is a waste of an application in terms of asking for that course. So it's very, very important for students to see what are the prerequisites, when are they, particularly with practical subjects, when are institutions examining students' work, having a look at whether they can audition. So students really do need to see what are the prerequisites. Thank you, Rick. Okay, so you can see this in this slide. So the essential prerequisites are interview, audition, or a pre-selection kit. And that pre-selection kit is something like RMIT might put out that you have to do a design project. And say if you're going to do interior design, the student has to do this extra little bit of work and then submit it to RMIT for to be counted for an interview or pre-selection. So they're what's called the essentials, and they're very important before the end of November or October. The ones that are not so essential, they're the ones that happen after you're being given, say in January, you've actually been given a course and you accept a course, and then they might say, well, you're going to be a nurse, we want you to get immunisations, or well, you're going to go into like some sort of sociology or some welfare area, so they'd like to do some police checks and or working with children, but they come later after you get offered. Okay, thanks, Rick.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Damon. I'm going to ask Miss Mazzarotto to take us through the next little section in relation to what are the actual steps that we need to take in order to apply for courses using VTAC.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hudson. Good evening, everyone. So I will take you through the steps to apply. I guess what's really important prior to applying is what Ms. Damon's gone through, and that is to really ensure that you've had a bit of a look at the types of courses that you perhaps are interested in. So then it'll make your VTAC application a little bit smoother, if you like. So I guess the first step that needs to happen in terms of creating your VTAC account is that students are going to require their VCAR number. So those VCAR numbers our home group teachers have those VCAR numbers. So if your child hasn't got their VCAR number, if you could let someone in the Year 12 team know, and we certainly can get that to them. So they require their VCAR number. Once they get on and they enter their VCAR number, what happens is that VTAC will actually then provide them with a VTAC ID and a PIN. So students will need to come up with 4-digit PIN plus some security questions to ensure that we're ensuring that it's private and confidential. The whole point of also having your VCAR number, I might add, is the fact that VCAR or VTAC needs to check that the details being entered are that of the student. So I have said to my group this week, please make sure that you are entering the name that the school has entered via our system, because we have had a couple of students where there hasn't been a match and we've actually had to get in contact with VTAC to try and rectify the issue. So again, first step, have your VCAR number, log in, they'll actually be able to verify that it's you. You'll then create a VTAC, a PIN, they'll create a VTAC ID. Good idea to also students to take a photo of that ID and that PIN. Okay, moving on. So once we create a VTAC account, there will be, VTAC's great in terms of having functions with messages, for example. So students will receive messages from VTAC. So this is an example of what your screen will look like. And it is a simple process of just simply following the steps. The other thing that I actually showed my home groups this week as well, which if you get onto the VTAC website, they actually also have a demonstration, so a course application demonstration, which you can log into, have a look at the way in which the process sort of takes place. Okay, Mr. Hudson. Moving along. Oh, thank you. Okay, so once it actually takes you through a variety of different steps, which the students cannot actually skip those steps. You actually need to complete them in a sequence in order for it to sort of save on the system as such, until you reach this screen where it then is asking students to start to apply for courses. Students can apply for up to 8 courses. And what we would be recommending is that students obviously put down the courses in their preference order. So ensuring that they're having, in that first preference, they're putting the subject that they, their dream course, if you like, and then moving down the list. It's probably also important that as they think about their preferences, they also think about the types of courses that perhaps are sort of similar, but may also provide them with an opportunity to transfer into their dream course later on. And the function of the applying for courses stage there is you'll actually see that there are little tabs that you can move your courses around up and down depending on what you wish to do. So that's really important function. So I've said to students at this point they are free to put those courses in whatever order they like, and then perhaps as they delve a little bit deeper into each of those courses, go back, read up on the course, have a look at what the actual course is about. I think that's really important because sometimes students may actually, look at the name of the course, but not actually look at what is actually in the course, what are the subjects I'll be studying within this course. So that's a great function of that preference system there. Okay. The other thing that VTAC will, in one of the stages in terms of going through a lot of the administrative documentation, if you like, it'll actually also ask students whether they are consenting to be part of the supplementary offer process. We are recommending that students tick yes for this, because what this actually means is that if the student does not receive any offers in the earlier rounds, VTAC will then release your details or students' details to institutions, and if they happen to have vacancies, then they will contact the student and make that particular offer or that availability of a spot in that course. So it's very, very important that students tick yes when looking at participating in the supplementary offer process. Okay. So once we actually put in all our courses, and as Mr. Hudson had talked about earlier, the fact that VTAC preferences or the closing date happens around about the 30th of September. Once ATARs are released, you have until sometime in January. It's a very short turnaround to be able to change your preferences. And then the deadline for the first round of offer, as you see there, is the 4th of Jan. So really making sure that, again, based on whatever that ATAR may be, checking to see, again, turning or adjusting your preferences if you like. So some students might find that what was perhaps, a fourth preference, they might decide to put up as their first preference now, depending on their offer. The other thing that's really important in terms of the change of preference is to really ensure that we're obviously connecting with perhaps someone from our Pathways team. And I know that the deadline comes at a bad time of the year, I guess, at the moment in terms of New Year, etc. But important that they are connecting and have some support in terms of trying to determine what is their best pathway once that ATAR is released. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mazzarotto. And just before I ask Ms. Damon to come back in, so just, in and around those dates. So we said with the ATAR being released on 30th of December, and then there's a short window in terms of giving you some support and being able to change some of your preferences. So we are looking forward to spending New Year's Eve parties with everybody this year in being able to work with you. So while the dates have changed, please understand that there will be staff at Taylors Lakes that will be there to be able to see Mr. Deedis' comment there. Yes, in lieu of perhaps a formal, we'll have a change of preference New Year's Eve party, but it is what it is. But teachers will be there to support you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Damon.
Okay, thanks, Rick. I actually, I'll go through the CEAS. CEAS is very, very important to our school, okay, because we can apply for CEAS. Okay, so special entry scheme, and it has a number of areas, and it's very, very important for our students to tick category 1. It collects data for the area, but it also indicates for students whether they are the first student to ever go to university. It's also based on the location, and we are teaching in the western suburbs, and so it's important that students are represented at schools or institutions. Okay, so thanks, Go on. Okay, so there's 4 categories, and I really insist students to click category 1. While it's important for all of us, we could all click category 1. We're not allowed to because of privacy issues. So we actually insist students to click on category 1 because this actually might get them into a course. And I know a few years ago, one student didn't click category 1 and she ended up spending an extra year at uni because of that particular issue. So we are very concerned about that category 1. The disadvantaged category is really only for the Centrelink students, and what they need is an updated letter, and it needs to be signed by them and uploaded, and it's all confidential as well. Category 3 is to do with a medical condition, and a lot of students have evidence of that because of the many times they might have to go to a doctor. Something has come up, they've had to meet with a psychologist, so there is evidence for that. Category 4 is very, very difficult circumstances, and they've actually added the extra for COVID this year. And I'm just wondering if there is a slide on that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But because James Molino has slightly altered things in the last few days, I'm interested to see what's going to happen out of that. Okay, so the personal information, as you can see, it is very private, and you can actually see that it's to do with non-English speaking background, the age, the gender, the location. So you might have nursing, and a student applies for nursing and they might be a male. So there's not many males in nursing. So often they get bonus points because they're going into a field of the workforce where there's not many of that gender. And it's the same with sciences as well. First in the family is very important, and also Indigenous Australians and underrepresented schools. And we are an underrepresented school, particularly at Melbourne University, and we don't have many students going there, and we are trying to access those programs as well. Yes, thanks. Okay, so disadvantaged financial background. I actually look after that if students want to connect with me. And I'd like to have students have the most latest letter from Centrelink Benefits. And it's very, very simple. And they just need to sign it and upload it. They often, if they haven't got a scanner, I do scan it for them. But if they have a scanner at home, they can just pop that on. And I just make sure that they enter category 2. And we don't need to look at their details on that. And this is how they upload. They've either got their own Centrelink number, or they've got their parents, or they have to put an impact statement or a statement of support. This is a very, very simple category to do. If students have the most recent information and the most recent letter, and I often ask them for the June-July letter to upload. Next slide, please. Okay, category 3 is disability or medical condition, and as I said, it's often related to students who have got ongoing evidence, but often students need the supporting statement by their doctor or their psychologist or psychiatrist. So that's very private, and the student sends the doctor a link, and they inform them that they will do this, and the doctor will put a supporting statement in. And so that is all to do with privacy. So the student doesn't actually see what is actually being written about them, but they must notify the doctor very, very early in this process, and not the night before the due date, because doctors are very, very busy, and some doctors know about the process and some don't. So it's very, very important to contact any GP to ask them to do a supporting statement for this category. Thanks, Sue. Okay, category 4, difficult circumstances. there's a list there, but it's not exhaustive. So you can actually have other things on that list that could have impacted you, but it's about how it has impacted your education. So they're not talking about anything but impact. The impact of how you have not been able to study, the impact of whether you can't go to school regularly, the impact of maybe a death in the family. This is very, very important for those circumstances. And the COVID-19, the impact is that everyone has been impacted. However, some students have been impacted far more than other students. So they're doing a type of a tier with this section, and we've got criteria to use, and we'll have recommendations from the coordinators to me to make an assessment of how this has impacted students. Okay, cease category 3 and 4. There, if anyone is dealing with homelessness or anything to do with refugees, this doesn't need to have an accompanying statement. In the past, they have had to have information, but it's very, very confidential, and so they don't need to have all that information at this point of time. However, if anyone is experiencing this section, they do need to contact Dean Mills, our support person at school, because it is very, very private, this section here under these areas. Thank you, Sue. Okay, so everyone has been affected by COVID, and we all understand that. But with VTAC, they've actually looked at 3 types of areas where students have been impacted. We all understand that students aren't coming to school, aren't with their friends, but there's other impacts where they might be living in a household where there's so many people, and they might be living in a household where the internet hasn't been regular. They might be living in a household where there's very few computers to share around, a lot of disruption. So it's very, very important that might be a consideration. And then the higher level one is family abuse, and that can impact a student. Having families around, not in the workforce, it could be abuse in the family, it could be any alcohol, any fighting. That's the extreme area there. So we actually need to find out from students if they are affected by that section. And again, the student welfare team will work through that with our students. Thanks, Sue. Scholarships are very, very interesting, and I'd like to talk quickly about this. I did a search today on accounting in the course search, and RMIT came up, and I actually went on to that to look at all the support material that RMIT offered. And there is a link where you can actually click on to say, is there any scholarships available for that particular subject? And then you can be directed to scholarships. So different institutions have different scholarships, and it is important for students to research that in their course search. There are scholarships that are academic, there's scholarships that are for students who are in remote areas, and there's scholarships for hardship as well. And the universities have this money put aside so that students can apply for scholarships. And it doesn't mean that you can't apply. I encourage every student to apply, but even on VTAC, there is a section, do you want to be considered for a scholarship? And the student clicks yes. However, students should do some research and find out about other scholarships, pertaining to individual organisations, and in every website they do have a link under scholarships, so it is worth having a look at. You don't get a scholarship if you don't research that area. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Damon. I can see lots of activity happening in the chat as well. So thank you to all those teachers that are contributing to that. So that whole area about the categories, we see this particularly this year, is going to impact pretty much everybody. So yeah, we will be you're wanting to see that our students receive the best support that they can. So probably at a minimum, as it's been referred to in the chat there, categories 1 and 4 is really where everyone is going to be wanting to tick those categories, and of course, with your own other personal scenarios, there may be other categories as well. I'm going to take you through the sort of the last main section of this presentation, and then we'll open it up to any questions further to that you may have. So this section is in relation to our results and offers. So what actually happens there come 7 a.m. Wednesday, 30th of December 2020. This is the big date that the government has announced. And so this is the day that students will be receiving their ATARs and study scores and the like. So there are a few different ways in which students can access this information on the day. So just having a look at a couple of those options there. So there's either just going after 7 o'clock, just going on to that website, results.atar.vic.edu.au. That's free online access. You'll just need your VCAR student number and your password, and you'll be able to get access to it. A very popular way that students access it is through the app, and if you haven't already downloaded that, you can get a copy, and there's a picture of that on the side of the slide as to what that looks like. And obviously, you will still receive a printed statement, but that will come out probably usually 1 to 2 days later. So we talked about after you get your results, you do have a little bit of time to consider whether your result is sort of in the same ballpark as what you thought you were going to get, or it was a little bit higher, or it was a little bit lower, and that may impact some of your choices in terms of some of those courses that you put in your preferences out of those 8 preferences that you're allowed to put in. So you can jiggle that around a little bit, bring some up, take some down, depending on what your result was, and you'll get some support at school if you want to have those conversations with us around that time. Effectively, what will happen then is once it gets to past that date to change your offers, so the first round of offers are going to be made in early January, and that's where you can see that most of the offers are going to take place. Most of our students will receive an offer in that first round, but that's not where it ends. In terms of students who perhaps didn't get an offer in the first round, there are several February rounds lined up, and we'll also have a look at what happens if you got an offer, but it's not exactly the one. It wasn't the number one that you're after, and what does that mean for you? So in terms of some of that process, so you will receive an offer advice from VTAC through their email system. So once you have created, remember you've already created a VTAC account, so they will be able to just send this information to you. You'll be able to access it from your VTAC account there, and that's likely to happen online from 2 o'clock on that day. So I think we were talking about 14th of January, 2 o'clock on that day. And but if you do want to wait a little bit later, you will receive written confirmation of that, usually the next day in the post. From here, so if you've got that information, then they'll also send out that information about where to from here. What are my enrolment instructions from that point? And so we're just getting introduced to the 3 options that are made available to students at that time: accept, defer, and reject. So accept obviously is the one that's pretty self-explanatory. There, you've been given an offer. You think that's a good situation for you, and we want you to accept and hold that place. Another way to look at it is, yes, I still want to look to hold that place, but instead of me starting that course in 2021, I would like the university to hold my place perhaps for 12 months, and I'll look to start that in 2022. And then the other option there is in terms of rejecting the offer. So the key information we want to be able to get across to you tonight, though, is really we want you to always accept an offer and never reject an offer, because you can always later on do something with that offer that you have accepted. But if you reject it outright, it's pretty much off the table. Okay, so as it says down the bottom there, the offer process will continue regardless of whether you've accepted or rejected your offer later on. Okay, so please, yeah, Mr. Laganga's in the chat there, just reiterating, please always accept your offer, and because that's just going to give you more options. So that's why we've got the separate slide for this one here. Please do not push the reject button. And just lastly there, in terms of what one of these pages could sort of look like, just to try to show you that you will be automatically considered for any higher preferences as they're going through those process of the offers. So if you see, there's like 5 rounds of offers, then there is an opportunity for you to still be considered in future rounds for your higher preferences. This slide is sort of showing there that for this particular student, they were offered a course which was number 5 in their list. So at this point, that can't be removed, but it can be moved up and down the schedule here if you want to be considered there for those ongoing rounds. And those courses that you still have higher in your preferences, you may still be considered for them in future rounds. But the ones below any of the courses that you have received an offer, you won't be able to move those above an offered course. So there's a little bit of jiggling that can take place in and around that time as well. And of course, you will continue to have access to support from us as a school through the Pathways team, the Year 12 team, and being able to support you and your families in those conversations at that time. So we understand that that's a lot of information to be exposed to tonight as well, but just continuing to be able to reiterate the importance of talking to the people that you do have access to. So we've heard from Miss Damon, who was our careers leader, but she's part of and she's leading that team, ably supported by your home group teachers, who you are having at least weekly, sometimes daily contact with, and you've got your Year 12 team, Miss Mazzarotto, Mr. Laganga, Miss Taquinio, and myself, to be able to assist with you as well. Further to that, there are a lot of other additional resources that are available to you through the VTAC website itself, instructions, fact sheets, videos, and they can be very helpful. You can, of course, call VTAC directly if you needed to. And we'll just flag in there in the last dot point is that the school does have some plans of being able to organise something that we perhaps wouldn't have done in the past with Year 12s, but because of the scenario this year and the likelihood that most, if not all, of our Year 12 students are going to need some VTAC to apply for VTAC provisions this year, that we'll look to organise a time to meet individually with each student, and families will be invited to attend if they can as well. So stay tuned to more information about that in the coming days. That is the end of our formal presentation. So I'll just stop that in here, and I certainly would like to just open the floor there to any of our students or parents that would like to either continue to ask a question through the chat function, or certainly if you would like to open your mic and ask one of the questions for any of the teachers that are here to help assist with that tonight. Having said that, if you don't have any other questions and you would like to leave the meeting, again, let me take this opportunity firstly to thank you for your participation and attendance tonight, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening.